Good morning, members. Thank you for joining us today for the first workshop of the year, 2025. And I hope that 2025 has been treating you well so far. Personally, it has been really, really busy. So today, our first workshop will be delivered by Ryder, Levett, and Bucknall through a really amazing team who will be introducing themselves. And it's going to be on carbon assessment in the built environment. And I guess we won't need to wait much because, mashallah, we have a really nice, wonderful group. So I'm going to leave the floor to Aisha to introduce herself and then the rest of the team. And then, Aisha, feel free to share your screen. Let me know if you need any support. And of course, with me always is Aska, my colleague supporting on education and events. So hello, Aska. So let's start.
Thank you, Lama. This is Aisha Marzouki, a graduate MVP cost consultant from Ryder, Levett, Bucknall. And we are happy joining us today's workshop. Please let me introduce you to my colleague, Una.
Yeah. Hi. Hello. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the seminar today. And we are going to present on the carbon assessment, and more in deep, we'll be touching the cost assessment rules also, which will be common. I mean, like the integration and synergy between the cost management and the carbon assessment over here, which has been adapted by RLB globally. So Aisha, I'll be sharing the screen over here. You can start the presentation. Just a second.
Okay, sure. Omar, if you can introduce yourself, please, as well.
Yeah, so this is Omar. I'm the MVP cost consultant from RLB. We'll be touch basing today in my part of the presentation on the global certifications and why sustainability should be implemented in the market. And then we would discuss at the end the future prospects that we might be facing when it comes to implementing the sustainability. Okay. And I get over to Aisha.
Mona, please, can you share it?
Yeah. Couldn't share your
Okay, so
content.
today's workshop. Today's workshop will be held by the Green Team, Ryder, Levett, Bucknall. And the members of the Green Team are Omar, Sadna, Mona, and Aisha.
Aisha, before you start, there's a bit of echo in your voice. Maybe it's the space.
Yeah,
I don't know
let me
if it's
change the
similar
space.
to everyone else.
For me as well.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so is it better now?
I think so.
Okay, so let me walk you through the agenda of today's workshop, where the first section will be talking about RLB, a quick introduction about who we are. From there, we will dive into the system integration, showcasing how our developed and advanced tools work seamlessly together to streamline processes and ensure precision. Next, we will explore carbon assessment, where we will explain how we measure, analyze, and manage carbon emissions in alignment with the global practices. This takes us to the integrated dashboard, which allows us to analyze complex data and prepare them into clear, actionable insights that support informed decision making. Followed by the case studies, we will be showcasing like four key areas. So we'll be talking about structural systems optioneering, facade system optioneering, flooring system optioneering, in addition to sustainability rating uplift, which is illustrating how we help projects achieve higher certifications like LEED, WELL, STDAMA through tailored interventions. And then we will explore the global certifications, where we will highlight the approach guided by globally recognized frameworks like RICS to ensure credibility and consistency to obtain various certification, and will give you a brief introduction about the market trends. Finally, we will wrap up with the future prospects, discussing the evolving landscape of the sustainability in this industry, including challenges and opportunities in data availability, emerging standards, innovative technologies, and the growing emphasis on sustainable practices and retrofitting projects. So first, to begin with, Ryder Levett Bucknall is independently owned company. We are more than 4,300 globally, work across spread across 40 countries, operating from around 140 offices, and we are in the Middle East since more than 40 years. Now I'll be talking about the systems integration. This slide illustrates how we bring together multiple tools and processes to ensure comprehensive and efficient approach to sustainability and cost management together. So at the core, we have ROS 5D, our robust tool, which mainly works to convert 3D inputs to 5D inputs. The main functionalities that ROS 5D works on is cost planning and estimating, which forms the foundation of accurate project budgets, then model map to extract building projects data directly from the design models. And then we have the bill of quantities and accurate measurements to ensure precision in the quantities and resource required. So after taking of the data of the required materials for the project, we prepare them using our tool, ROS 5D. And then we have the cost report. Using one-click LCA, we obtain the data required for the carbon emissions. So one-click LCA, sorry, it's meant to be used to get the carbon assessment. And then we have, by having both tools together, we have the carbon report and the cost report. This gives us an integrated report. And to get an interactive dashboard, a clear vision to our clients, we use Power BI. So by connecting these tools, we align our processes with globally recognized guidelines, such as RICS standards. And this integration allows us to deliver transparent, data-driven insights to our clients while supporting sustainability goals. This interconnected methodology ensures that every decision is informed, measured, and aligned with both objectives and broader environmental targets. Now I'll be handling to my colleague Mona. He will continue from his side.
Thank you, Aisha, for the introduction of the company and also the integrated tools which we use and about the integrated reports and the carbon assessment. And now we'll deep dive, we'll deep dive into our carbon assessment workflow, our cost management workflow, and both together how it takes place in RLB. And coming to the first workflow, which is visible on the top, this is RLB's carbon estimating process, which has been adapted based on REBA work plan stages. In the initial design stage, we'll support our client uh, to lay down and analyze the baseline and targets of a project in terms of carbon footprint. And later in the design development stage, we closely coordinate with the designers. We understand what all options available in the market and also the things which have been suggested by the designers, and do deep optioneering studies regarding the carbon and come up with the various carbon results to identify the best option for the project to reduce the budget in terms of carbon while comparing with the initial stage set baseline budget. And during the contract documentation stage, we support our client to lay down all the set targets, baselines on the tender documentation and float to the contractors. And further, in the construction stage, we support and coordinate closely with the project management team and the suppliers, manufacturers to achieve the set targets previously in the previous stages to achieve the green building or green certifications, etc. And during the building operations, we do post construction carbon assessment, and we help our clients to get the green certifications. And during the asset management stage, we establish, audit the strategic asset management plan for a project. And below the line, it is about it is about the deep dive into the initial stage, where what we do under cost management and carbon assessment, which results into a integrated report, which is RLB's product. So over here, the above line highlights the cost management workflow, and below line it's about the carbon assessment workflow. So I can hover my mouse over here, and I hope it's visible. So in this first stage, it's a project kickoff stage where we understand the project in terms of cost and carbon based on the assets available in the market and what type of asset where the client is trying to achieve. And then in the second stage, where we'll go in deep. Sorry, Lana, you want to speak something?
Yes, I have a question, and
Yeah.
I think it may be on other attendees' minds. So this process, is it similar for all carbon assessment, or is it specific as a workflow for RLB?
Yeah, thank you. I should have mentioned this in the beginning. Sorry. As I said on the first line, it has been adapted based on REBA work plan stages. So it's a standard in the construction industry. And coming to the carbon assessment and cost management workflow, which has been adapted based on RICS principles. So it is followed based on international standards. Yeah, I hope Lana's query got solved. Yeah, and going forward, and in the second stage, where we go in, where we deep dive into each element and understand what are the alternatives available in the market, or what are the items actually in this project which is typical or which is very new to the specific project. We'll understand these by interacting with the clients. Yeah, Navid, do you have any question right now? Yeah.
Just thank you for the information. However, I would like to know when you say you propose during the design
Yeah.
stage, so is it you propose the solutions available within the country, or what is your scope of work in during these kind of stages?
Uh, Navid, yeah, I understand. Based on the case, this answer for these things will be at the end of this. I mean, like in the later stages, we'll be providing this information clearly in our case studies and further information. Yeah. And now in second stage, so we'll review the design and raise our RFIs, queries, and understand how the specific project is different from the typical or standard projects. It will be done in both cost management and carbon perspective. And during the stage three, here, the real functioning will be happening, where we'll prepare the clear work breakdown structure and identify each item specific to the construction project like concrete, columns, beams, etc. The primary elements which are involved into the project. In the same way, we prepare the master list which is required for carbon assessment, and also we do GWB mapping related to it. And on moving forward in the fourth step, what we do is we closely coordinate with the suppliers, manufacturers, and we understand based on the materials, what is the price of the materials based on the quotations they have, which they have which which they will give to us, and also the EPDs provided by the manufacturers, where we get the carbon factors over there. So compiling both the BOQ in the stage 3 and the cost and carbon factors in the stage 4, we will compile the report in the stage 5. Over here, as Aisha got highlighted in the previous slide, we have several integrations with the other softwares. We are able to generate the entire report in single robust software, which is our in-house software ROS5D, and we are able to generate the integrated report. So then we'll move with the over here we are highlighting the dimensions, how we do the carbon assessment at RLB, and also the same thing which has been which has been inspired by RICS standards. And this is on the right side, you can see the WLCA modular structure. Over here, it tells the life cycle of one single project from initial production stage to the end of life cycle stage. Over here, we are emphasizing mostly on product stage and construction stage, which is module A. As now UAE is mostly concentrated and emphasizing on this stage, because when we compare on the studies, when we talk on the studies, what happened is uh, the whole emissions, the carbon emissions from the construction industry is 100%. Let's say it's 100%. Then 30% of the emissions, it's from the initial stage, which is product stage and construction stage. So when, let's say, the life cycle of a building is 100 years, in that the initial stage, the construction stage would be 2 to 3 years. In this less amount of time, we have significant chunk of carbon emission to reduce, so which is 30%. So we are mostly concentrating on product stage and construction stage during this time. So uh, in holistically, this is the sorry in holistically, this is the WLCA modular structure, and in our sample projects we will be identifying more on the initial stage. And coming to the NRM elements, this is the uh, common scope where carbon and cost are brought together based on these categorizations based on NRM elements. So here you can see superstructure, substructure, finishes, furniture, buildings. These are the group elements. To make our data more interpreted, so we have broke down into elements. So yeah, uh, Sala, yeah, you have some question?
So much. I noticed that you are including the building service equipment as part of the wildlife carbon assessment. So can you please elaborate more on that point?
Yeah, building service equipment here, as we are talking about the product stage and construction stage, we'll be talking about the embodied carbon related to this building service equipment, where let's an EPD or let's an EPD take. Let's consider an equipment done by the manufacturer.
Is Lutz back or still not?
Sorry. Hello, I think some listening. Okay, coming to the building service equipment, let's consider an equipment, HVAC equipment, generator, whatever it is. So it will be brought by the manufacturer. So when it come into the market, it will come with a price and an EPD. So during using this amount of carbon factor from the EPD, we'll be generating these reports. In the later stages, we can, in the result time, we can really discuss about this more detail. Over here, we are demonstrating how we do carbon assessment in our using our RLB software called in ROS 5D. I'm playing the video. Over here, we have highlighted the major elements, which is column and beams, as a sample products to identify how we do the assessment using a software and one click. And these are the elements and categories. The items which are adding into the software are the categories and the dimensions which we are going to measure. The first line item is estimated cost, which says cost in AED or whatever currency we want to find out. And later, the below things which highlights the carbon factors. First one is the product stage, and second one is transportation to site, and the others. Like as I highlighted, we were working on the initial stage, which is the A module. We have highlighted that in our ROS 5D. And now what you're seeing on the screen is one-click interface, where we identify the elements which are required for the items which are listed in the BOQ, which is column and beams. So in the columns, we require the three major elements, which is concrete, reinforcement, and shuttering. So we are identifying the items which are required for those items. In the one-click interface, we can identify the carbon factors which are really required for these items. So these carbon factors and items which we have identified will be generated as a result, and these information will be integrated into the software uh, by using the rate libraries. Over here, the information has been listed: ready mix concrete, reinforcement, and wooden shuttering. The carbon factors related to this information will be feed in into here through an integration of one click. So the same information will be integrated for estimated cost, product stage, transportation to site, and and construction and installation, which is A5. So as this information as this information is fed into it, our robust library will be having the data which is required to do the assessment. So based on that, we are for beams and columns, we are preparing a rate analysis where it includes all these items, and which gives the comprehensive price for each item. And this rate type will be linked to the items which are listed here. So at the end, we'll be in a position to identify cost, which is here, and carbon, which is here. So consolidatedly, we are able to identify the comprehensive report which contains the cost of this element and carbon factor of this element. Over here, to make this to look in the screen easy, we have highlighted only the product stage factor, which is A1 to A3. In the similar way, we can have an additional columns and identify the whole, the total carbon factor over here. Yeah. Now moving to our carbon dashboard. Based on the results which are generated Based on the results which are generated from the previous analysis, this is the carbon dashboard looks like. For this sample project, the total carbon emissions and the carbon footprint, means the GHG gases for this project is 160,000 kilograms CO2e. And this results has been identified based on elemental wise, which is substructure, frame, external walls, and roof. Here, what we can observe, the substructure carbon footprint is higher when compared to the other elements, where frame is slightly closer to the substructure. And over here, the same results has been identified in the level of modules, which is A1 to A3, A4, and A5. So here we can see most of the carbon emissions are majorly from A1 to A3. And here, this donut chart has been identified between materials. Over here, what we can observe, the steel is the major contributor for the carbon emissions in this project. Over here, and this is the Sankey chart where we can identify all three levels, we can make all three levels see in the same screen and identify which is contributing more, and we can go and find alternative for that single item. Let's say here is the example. When you see in the levels of elemental wise, the most contribution is done from substructure and frame. So these are the major contributors in, as we discussed here in the broken chart, these are the major contributors, and these are connected to modules. In modules, you can identify A1 to A3 is the major contributor for the carbon. And over here, in terms of materials, steel is the major contributor. Then in this, when you compare all three levels, then here in this project, we need to concentrate mostly on steel. So we need to find out major alternatives or the better options available in the market for steel. Example, we can do some design changes for this. Let's say the steel structure of this project is more, then we need to propose some concrete frame structures or the timber frame structures to reduce this carbon footprint. Or else, if there are any design constraints, such as like we can't replace the steel from any other materials, then we can identify uh, low carbon materials in the same steel. Let's say the recycled content steel. These type of materials comes into our mind to reduce the carbon footprint. So this is how we made our results easy to identify where we need to focus on. And in the next slide, we are highlighting the integrated reporting, where we talk about both cost and carbon. Primarily, we'll focus on the pie charts, which are highlighted on top right corner, where these two pie charts are first pie chart representing the carbon emissions, and the second pie chart is representing the cost of the project. And over here, we can see it has been bifurcated based on frame, substructure, roof, water, and RM elements. And here we can identify where the most carbon is contributed and where the cost is contributed over here. And bringing both the pie charts into bar chart on the left hand side, where we can identify the blue bars representing the carbon of that particular element, and the gray bar represent the cost of that particular element. So here, when it brings onto the single chart, we are in a position to identify that frame is the major contributor in carbon and the cost. Where here, it helps us to identify which is the best element to target to reduce the carbon and also to the cost. And coming to the right hand below, over here, this is the report which we have generated from our ROS 5D, which tells all which denotes all the each and every item, its carbon and its cost side by side, makes our lives easy to understand each and every element individually. Uh, from now, Sadhna will be taking forward you with the case studies and some of the project insights, what we have done.
So, thank you, Una, for the comprehensive overview of the carbon assessment process and our dashboards. Am I audible? Can someone confirm?
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much. Can I request control, Una, if it's okay, of the presentation? Yeah. Okay, great. I have control now. Okay, so before we move on to the specific slides in this section, let me just give an overview of what we are going to see in this particular section of the presentation. Here, we are mainly going to focus on the case studies. That is, we're going to look at microscopic level at certain systems of the project, which are basically key cost drivers. More often than not, during the design stages, especially let's say after concept design, between concept to detailed design, we often are collaborating with designers for various optioneering exercises. We as cost consultants generally tend to advise on which design option would probably be most ideal to suit the client's budget and the appetite to absorb more cost. and at the same time be more design efficient. Now, as Mona mentioned, when we are cost consultants who also can talk about the carbon assessment side of things, here we've done certain particular case studies which analyze both cost and carbon between the different options proposed and identify which would be most ideal in each of the scenarios. Okay, the first case study that we're going to look at is structural systems optioneering. In one of our projects, the designers had come up with various slab systems, which is very common, especially in the UAE market. Here there are a few slab systems, as you can see. It ranges from the conventional in situ concrete slab, 300 in situ concrete slab, and we have other innovative options as well. PT slab is also quite common nowadays. We see post-tension slabs, hollow core slabs. There were a few certain outliers, let's say, in terms of slab options. This one in particular, this is a cross-laminated timber slabs with RC beams, and there was also a concrete vault slab. Now, we did analyze the cost of these slabs with the usual materials that go into the slab options. Other than that, we also analyzed the carbon emissions of all of these different options. On the left side, you see this stacked bar chart, sorry, column chart, in which we have shown the pink bars basically indicate the cost and the blue bars indicate the carbon. When it comes to cross-laminated timber, because of the obvious nature of timber, we are looking at very low carbon emissions. But of course, because it's timber again, it's very high cost. So it's the highest costing slab option, but with the lowest carbon emissions. Now, there are other options. All the other options, the blue bars look almost comparable, not a significant jump or a drop, except for the in situ concrete slab, which is the highest, of course. The highest carbon emissions is from the in situ concrete slab, which is the most traditional option. Now, any other option that you look at, the hollow core slab with delta or the concrete vault slab or the PT slab would give you that sweet spot of identifying that ideal scenario where you're achieving best of both cases. Now, in order to take a decision, obviously we need to have a conversation with the client and understand what their appetite is to absorb that additional cost premium to achieve the carbon emissions. Now, the best way to put this forward is a marginal abatement cost curve that is on the right here. Now, this marginal abatement cost curve gives you, it exactly tells you what's the cost that you'll have to pay for achieving a certain amount of reduction in the carbon emission. Now, let's go to the top, right end of this chart. Here, the in situ concrete slab. It is at the lowest, as in the emission reduction is the lowest. You're not going to reduce any emissions because it's obviously on the highest end of the carbon emission. So without achieving any emission reductions, you're paying around 703 per meter square. Now, let's say you're achieving, the next one is here, the 265 hollow core slab with delta. Now, you're able to achieve a good reduction, which is between 100 to 200 kg CO2 per meter square. But what is the price you're paying? You're paying around 1076 per meter square. Now, let's say your client says, you know what, guys, tell me an option that satisfies both. I'm okay to pay a little premium, but I want to achieve a good carbon emissions, but don't make me pay so much that it's going to absorb all my contingency. Then in that case, you can analyze using this curve and identify that this particular option over here, which is PT slab, 250 PT slab, gives you a good carbon emission reduction, which is between 100 to 200 kg CO2, but it comes at a cost of 607 per meter square. Now, this is obviously the best case scenario because the cost is low, you're achieving carbon emissions, and it works always. So, I mean, it works in all cases. It checks all boxes. So that's the option that we would propose to the client. This was one example of the structural systems optioneering. Again, all of this varies. Even the cost of the structural systems varies vastly. Now, the whole concept of saying PT slab is less expensive than the conventional RC slab also comes with a caveat. It depends on what is the quantity of PT slab we are looking at, how the design is made, because this is a particular case study for a project. In this project, the amount of PT slab was extensive, which would help us achieve that cost savings when compared to conventional slab. This obviously will vary from case to case, and it has to be analyzed on that particular case, and then an informed decision has to be made. Moving forward, this particular case study is on a facade system. Una, I have taken control, so no problem. I'll handle the controls. Thanks. So Okay. The facade system optioneering. Facade is also a key cost driver. Often when we look at value engineering options, we always target the facade because it's more often than not a key cost driver. Here we've tried to do an optioneering exercise and compare two different options. One is your BIPV panel facade, that is your solar panels on the facade itself, which will generate your power. And the other option is going for a terracotta cladding on the envelope, with obviously it will not generate power, so you'll have to go for a local power grid support. Now, we've tried to analyze the cost in two aspects: the upfront capex cost that we'll have to put in, and the upfront embodied carbon associated with it, and the long-term perspective, which is your life cycle cost and your life cycle assessment. Now, let's look at the first graph, the capex versus embodied carbon. When you look at the upfront cost that you'll have to incur to install both of these, your gray, which is represented by your BIPV panels, is around 558. In terms of cost, let's say 4,200 per meter square, and terracotta cladding comes at 1,800. Even on the carbon, upfront carbon, 558 is higher than 49.8, which is for your terracotta cladding. Again, let's look at just this perspective, the capex perspective. When your project is tight on budget and your client is advising you, guys, I don't have an appetite to go for a cost premium, then obviously BIPV panels prima facie might look like it's not ideal. But again, based on our interactions with the market, we often interact with vendors, especially in the sustainability sector. Most of them are also members of EGBC. We've come across certain vendors like Yellow Door Energy, for example. They offer certain OPEX models, like you can go for alternative leasing or OPEX models, which would basically cut down your capex cost. Your upfront payment to install the PV panels would be minimum to even zero. There are certain attractive models, but it's just that you wouldn't have ownership of those PV panels. Of course, everything comes with pros and cons. Depending on the client's appetite, you can always make the right decision. Again, let's look at the long run now, long-term perspective. In the long-term perspective, the BIPV panels definitely present very less carbon emissions when compared to your terracotta cladding. Now, why is that? Because terracotta cladding is connected to your grid support, and in this particular analysis, we've assumed that the BIPV panel is supporting the energy of the building fully, and it's a net zero building, which is our assumption, which is why the kg CO2 emissions associated with BIP panels is very less. And even in terms of cost, the life cycle cost, which includes your replacement costs and repair costs and whatnot, maintenance costs, when you look at the life cycle cost perspective, the BIP panels definitely present an efficient option. That is, it is at 8182 cost per AD per meter square against terracotta cladding, which is around 8772. So yes, it's always better to look at the long-term perspective and then make the right choices. That was a case study on facade system. Moving on, I think there was a question. Just a minute. Keen to see the case study for flooring system. Okay, I will take you to the case study for flooring system. No problem. But then I've skipped to the end of the presentation by mistake. Let me go back again. Okay, flooring system. Flooring system is often, it's a tough nut to crack, in the sense, see, designers often come up with certain innovative material palettes for floorings and wall finishes and all the finishes basically, because that's how they form their that's how they give their signature on the project, right? So it's often hard to sort of provide a completely different alternative which is outside their material palette. Let's say they're coming up with I don't know, like for let's say a granite or stone related material palette, and then we go in there and we're like, you know what, guys, why don't you try this palette, which is completely out of what they have envisioned for the project. Then obviously as designers it would be tough for them to accommodate a completely alien material, in terms of comparison with their existing palette. So yes, this particular flooring system optioneering is more of a research based case study. I would like to clarify that here. It's not been implemented, it was not based on an actual project data, but it's more like a research from our end to evaluate what would be the low carbon alternative. And I think we have a question here. Let me just stop right here and see what the question is. I have a question in second case study, why we can do carbon abatement study. If yes, what the curve looks like and what's the best option to choose between the two options. Yes, definitely we can do a carbon abatement study, because we would be looking at the reduced emissions that you achieve with the uplift of cost that you pay. So obviously, even when you do a marginal abatement cost curve, you would end up, especially if from the long-term perspective, if you do that marginal abatement cost curve, definitely your BIPV panels would be a better option. In fact, I would suggest if you want to do a carbon abatement study, by carbon abatement study, I believe you're referring to the marginal abatement cost curve that I showed previously for the slab optioneering. If that's my understanding, then it's always better to have more than two options when you do a marginal abatement curve, because in the previous case study we had only two. One is your BIPV panels and your terracotta cladding. So in that case, a simple bar chart would give you the entire picture. If you want to do a carbon abatement study, you can take in more options and of course do that study and then compare. Let's say there is a more cost effective option than BIPV panels, which is giving you relatively less emissions, then you can obviously go for it. It again depends on what the client's appetite are. I hope I understood. I hope I answered your question. Coming back to the flooring system, in the flooring system, we have bamboo versus vinyl. So we see a certain stick-on vinyl type of, the vinyl flooring which you stick on using adhesives on some of the projects. This again, I would like to clarify that this does not refer to your typical outdoor decking that we usually come across, because that is a different case altogether. Obviously, it'll be more expensive than your, stick-on adhesive floorings. This is a research-based case study just for, the stick-on floorings. Here, we have compared bamboo as a viable alternative to your vinyl flooring. So here, the capex cost, let's look at the capex and embodied carbon. The capex cost for bamboo flooring is around 245 per meter square, and the same for vinyl flooring is around 360. And the upfront embodied carbon of bamboo is almost half as that of vinyl. And if you consider the replacements of bamboo over a study period of, we have considered a study period of 100 years for this research, then your bamboo floorings would last much longer than your vinyl flooring. Your vinyl flooring would last typically around 10 to 20 years. So considering the replacement cycles, the LCC of the bamboo also presents a good alternative. It's around 613, whereas your vinyl flooring is 4,800 per meter square. Yes, so why bamboo? Bamboo gives you that sustainability focus and it gives you economic benefits. And we are seeing a growth of good bamboo vendors, good quality bamboo vendors. Recently, we even interacted with Ecomat Pro, who are producing good quality bamboo decking and other bamboo solutions. So yes, it's time to consider bamboo as an alternative to your traditional materials. Now I'll go back to the questions that were asked when I was presenting this slide. Naveed has asked, typically concrete screeds are placed below the topping products, vinyl carpets. Can you please include in your carbon and cost calculation? Sure, we can include that, although it would, in terms of the decision making, the concrete screed additions might probably not affect the choice, because if we are going for backgrounds, we have to go for backgrounds for both the cases that we consider. But yes, we can take that into account and also update that. But in terms of decision making, sure, I don't think this will change in terms of what we propose as an alternative. Which database is integrated with the tool for CAPEX and LCC? How often is this updated? That's from Ishan. If I understand your question correctly, you're saying which database is integrated with the tool for CAPEX and LCC. So we have our in-house tool, like Una previously mentioned, and Aisha also touched upon it. We have our tool called ROS5D. It's an in-house estimation software. We, apologies, we generally tend to do our CAPEX estimates on that software. And currently, we've also in the process of integrating ROS5D with our Excel model for LCC. So that's also underway. Soon we'll be able to generate LCC models directly from ROS5D as well. I hope I've answered your question. From Sala, we have another question. Could you please share with us other facade case studies when you compare the cost and embodied carbon for different type of glazing, insulations, and block works? Yes, I mean, we could do that. For now, for the sake of this workshop, we've conducted these case studies because we did not want to do too many of facade case studies. We wanted to touch upon different elements of the projects. But sure, maybe for another session, we could take up these case studies that you mentioned. For sure, we could try that. Michael Schmidt has asked, where do you get the embodied carbon information for the individual materials from, and do you verify the values? Okay, so Thanks for the question, Michael Schmidt. So previously, I think my colleagues touched upon this. The embodied carbon information is through integration with this software called OneClick. It's not our in-house software; it's a third-party software, but we've integrated with our system. So the EPDs the EPDs that you find in that software is used to get the embodied carbon information. And yes, these are verified. There are different types of EPDs. So there is third-party verified EPDs, which is the highest level of validation that you can get, because EPD is something that is released by the manufacturer, but when it is validated by a third party, which means you can rely on those values, we often look for third party EPDs as a priority when we do our carbon assessment. So yes, it is validated and it is from an external software. Okay, I think we had a round of questions. Let's move on to the next case study. I don't know why this is not moving on. Una, can you help me move to the next case study, please? Okay, thank you. I've taken control now. I don't want to take control. I think it's better you move the slides. Okay, so the last case study that we are going to look at is a case study on the sustainability rating uplifts. Now, this is a very interesting question. We are always asked this question as cost consultants. Okay, so let's say we are talking to a client and client says, yes, I want to go for lead silver or lead gold or well or Escidama, whatever it is, and they want to look at what's the premium that they're going to pay. Like we discussed on the particular slab systems, obviously when you look at a project level, you will have to pay a certain premium to go for a better quality in terms of sustainability, right? So what's the premium that we are looking at is it's a question that's often asked to us as cost consultants. So we've tried to address that question using a case study of a project that we worked on in Abu Dhabi. It's a project which is a headquarters in Abu Dhabi. The GFA is around 32,000 meters square. It's a commercial, basically it's an office for an environmental agency here. So they were very sensitive to the sustainability targets that they had. As you can see, it is a one-of-a-kind project, a landmark project when it comes to the field of sustainability. The targets were all high: the LEED Platinum, Escidama Pearl 5, Well Platinum, and Net Zero. All of these targets were part of the project brief. So when you have such tall targets, obviously you will have to do a good level of analysis on the different rating systems and how best you can leverage and identify synergy between these systems. So here what I've tried to do is we've tried to show what's the uplift that one has to pay, the cost premium that one has to pay when you go from no certification, which is the baseline where you don't have any certification, to an Escidama Pearl 2, which is like the bare minimum certification that you can get in Abu Dhabi. And then so on and so forth. You keep adding more certifications to it, like your lead silver, lead gold, lead platinum, and so on. And let's look at this, for example. From baseline, if you want to just achieve Escidama Pearl 2, then you might have to pay a premium of around 2%. But if you want to achieve, let's say, Escidama Pearl 2 plus lead silver, then you have to pay a premium of 3% from the baseline. Now, how are we saying this? Because see, we have in this project we had a certain sustainability consultant who had come up with a matrix basically of these different rating systems, and in the matrix we identified the different design solutions that are possible to achieve each of the credit categories. For example, if you want to achieve your credits under materials and resources, and you want to do that by doing a life cycle assessment, then you get 3 points as per lead. Now, how do you achieve those 3 points? You need to document the embodied carbon assessment and so on and so forth, and that's how you achieve those credits. Now, we've used that matrix and arrived at a cost assessment to determine the uplifts. Now, just to go from baseline to Escidama Pearl 2, you're looking at 2% uplift. But if you want to go for Escidama Pearl 4 and lead platinum, you're looking at 8%. But when you had a whole other rating system, which is well, then to move from well core to well platinum, let's say, which is the highest, where you have Escidama Pearl 5, lead platinum, and well platinum, you're looking at an overall uplift of 21%, which is of course a premium to pay, but it depends on what the client's targets are in terms of sustainability. Okay, I think conscious of time, I've come to the end of my section. So far, I've tried to give a micro level analysis of the different systems, which are mostly key cause drivers and important when it comes to carbon emissions. My colleague Omar will now give you a macro level perspective and take you through the market trends and future prospects. Over to you, Omar.
Thanks, Sada. Okay, so thanks for walking through these case studies. They were interesting, and as I might see from the chat, looks like more than one is interested with this slide. So what you have shown gave us some sort of a detailed micro-level perspective on how the sustainability can be implemented. Now I'll be covering the macro-level trends and the certifications that are shaping how the sustainability is being used globally and how the frameworks would be adopted. So let's start with some numbers. So because nothing says what we're talking about quite like throwing in some stats. So there are currently around 195,000 LEED certified projects worldwide, covering around 29 billion square feet. So this is somehow, to give you a sense of scale, it's roughly the size of 290,000 football fields. So just imagine that these football fields turned into a green sustainable building. That's the kind of impact that we're talking about. So LEED remains one of the most widely recognized certifications globally, addressing aspects like energy efficiency, water usage, and even the materials used in construction. So it's like the gold standard for green buildings. Now, is also making waves, especially in the post-pandemic world. It focuses on the occupant health and wellness, because what's the point of having a sustainable building if it makes the people inside feeling miserable? So let's bring it closer to home, to here in UAE. We have the Istidama, which means sustainability in Arabic. So Istidama stated in our regional context focuses more on water conservation and energy efficiency. This makes sense considering the part of the world that we are living in. There's also Arkidama. I'm not sure that all of you are aware of it, but we might consider it as Istidama's cousin. It's used for residential and community projects in Abu Dhabi. Both frameworks ensure that the developments meet the region's sustainability goals and considers the local environment conditions. Now, one of the certifications that's so slowly gaining momentum here is the Regional Environmental Labeling, or the REL. So it's like UAE's way of saying that we don't need to rely on international standards alone. We can create our own localized benchmarks. So the REL focuses on integrating sustainability into local policies and practices. And we expect to see a significant uptrend in project adopting these certifications in the next few years. So going to the next slide. So why are we expecting an uptrend in the sustainability? It's because the sustainability certifications. It's because of the benefits we're seeing in the market, which are highlighted in this slide. So breaking it down, we'd find first the property value. So do we know, or do any of you know, that the green buildings tend to sell about 26% more than their less sustainable counterparts? So that's like getting a luxury upgrade at no extra cost, except in this case, you're getting a better building that's also better for the planet. Next is the sustainable finance. So the UAE has witnessed a 35% increase in the green financing last year. So here is where Masdar comes into the picture. Masdar, as many of you know, is Abu Dhabi's renewable energy company and is a key player when it comes to driving green projects across the region. Many green finance many green finance related companies are part of the EGBC, which is playing a critical role in promoting these efforts. Then there is the increased occupancy in offices. So data shows that green certified offices have around 6% higher occupancy rate compared to non-certified ones. So if you are a private developer, let's say Masdar again as an example, so it's leading the way in prioritizing sustainability. They are reaping the benefits. So we hope that other developers, private developers, take a note and follow the suit. And finally, there's the brand value. So companies occupying sustainable buildings often experience a brand value boost of up to 30%. Why is this? As Sadna might have touched base on her last case study. So sustainability is a key part of the corporate social responsibility. So it's no longer just about the buildings. It's about building smarter and more responsible. I'd like to know at the end of these slides, do you think who are some of the clients that might pursue these certifications, and what drives them to this? Is it just the financial return or the regulatory requirements, or is it just the brand perception? I'd like to hear your thoughts about this or that. So, other slide, Bruno? Okay. So, so far, we have provided a micro-level perspective on what's currently happening in the market. So now let's conclude by looking at some of the simple tasks and challenges we see in the field and how they can be turned into opportunities. So the first challenge is the information on material specs. It's one of the biggest issues that we face is the lack of the early stage data on sustainable materials. So specifications of green materials often come in very late during the project life cycle. So it's like trying to add a sunroof to your car after it's already been built. So if we can start incorporating discussions around sustainable alternatives right from the project inception, we can achieve better outcomes. Next, we have the regional benchmarking. So the regional benchmarking for the carbon emissions, currently there is a lack of local data, but this is gradually improving. For example, there is Kandil. Kandil is a well-known designer you might be aware of. So Kandil is collaborating with some of the government entities to create a database for the carbon benchmarks for structural elements. So this is a great initiative. And if more designers and stakeholders collaborate on similar projects, it will for sure help create accurate benchmarks that everyone can use. Then we have the emerging standards. So since sustainability is relatively a new field, we're seeing different standards being developed. Our recommendation as RLB, we'd like to follow the RICS WLCA as it is comprehensive and well-structured. Then we have the emerging technologies. So these technologies present a huge opportunity. Tools like the Autodesk Forma and the Carbon Calculator plugin for Revit, all of these help integrate sustainability assessments into existing workflows, improving the efficiency and accuracy. And also, embracing these technologies is essential for the future of the sustainable building design. Okay, I would hold on for here. So there is a question from Muhammad Wasim. Carbon data is available publicly for regional benchmark. Not locally, they're available internationally, but locally we're trying to work with some of the, let's say, like OneClick, for example. If you worked in OneClick, you would find that there are some local data for this, for few elements. However, they're limited. So what they're doing is they're trying to enhance and increase their database to accommodate more values and to create a regional benchmark. Okay, getting back. So the passive design strategies. So the design strategies are another area where we expect to see more focus. This involves leveraging natural site parameters like the sunlight and ventilation, for example, to make buildings more energy efficient from the outset, encouraging clients and design teams to prioritize what we could say passive strategies over shortcuts will result in truly sustainable design. Then here comes the big issue. Now let's talk about the client uptake. Here we need to be honest. Right now, the demand for the sustainability services is still relatively low, especially from private developers. So we do expect this to change as awareness grows. Again, we have Masdar that sets a great example of leading the way in this space, and we hope to see more developers follow the suit again. Lastly, let's talk about the retrofit and refurbished project. These are generally more sustainable compared to building new projects from scratch. However, there's a challenge. Property owners often prefer new, shiny projects over refurbishing old ones, but there is a huge opportunity here to save the costs and achieve the sustainability goals. A great example for this is the Crown Plaza. Crown Plaza, it's the hotel on Sheikh Zayed Road. It underwent a refurbishment and maintained its luxury appeal. So if a high-end hotel can do it, why can't other projects? And finally, the UAE market has a growing pool of local specialists who can provide carbon and sustainability services. So this means that clients no longer need to hire overseas consultants at a premium. By leveraging a local talent, we can deliver the services more efficiently and cost effectively. So in conclusion, would like to say that sustainability is no longer a choice, it's being a necessity, and the market's evolving, and those who embrace sustainability will be the ones who thrive in the future. So thank you all for being here, and if there's any questions, all of us would be happy to answer.
Thank you, Omar, Avuna, Aisha, and Sadna for the presentation. It has been really interesting, and we could see from the different questions that came up. I know we're a bit over time, and I know there are several questions also there. If you want to hang out with us for 5 more minutes just to do a wrap up, you're welcome to stay. If you have to leave, we totally understand. Please be aware that we will post the recorded video of this webinar on our website, as we always do, and that if you want to be connected with the team from RLB, we can also do that. My favorite aspect of today's webinar were the case studies, so it's an eye-opener. So I'm going to just give it 5 more minutes, and again, if you have to go, we totally understand. So maybe 5 more minutes, team from RLB, just to look into the questions, and we can always follow up later on.
So there was one. Thank you, Lana. Thank you so much. There was one question I think we missed. How do you see Decree Law 11 of 2024 influencing the update of carbon assessments by the clients? So although I would not be able to quote the law as it is, but I think from our understanding of this decree, I believe it's going to be the carbon emissions reporting is going to be mandatory, and clients will be, if they do not have the interest, now they'll mostly be forced to look at what emissions they are releasing as a company and as projects for the projects that they work on. So companies who do report and who do report reduced emissions will be incentivized, and companies who do not report or go for extremely high emissions would be penalized, is our understanding from the decree. But yeah, again, we can't quote what the exact decree of law is. The next question is from, I think, the carbon data Omar had addressed. There's another question on supplier database for alternative materials. It's an interesting question. So for supplier databases, most likely for the typical materials, the core materials like concrete or rebars, let's say, we have certain listed suppliers for green concrete, let's say. If you go to the Dubai municipality, Dubai authorities website, you would find certain listed suppliers as well who do provide these green concrete solutions. But again, concrete and steel is somewhat, the most conventional material that one would look at. If you want to look at completely new alternatives or brainstorm new materials and introduce them to the project, then yes, it is a bit hard. There is no regulated list of alternative suppliers as such for all the materials that one can think of. Of course, this would be a good idea for the for future. The government could set this up. I'm not sure if it's already underway, but yeah, it's a good way to set up a regulated list of alternative material suppliers. But again, challenges is this whatever I told, but there are opportunities as well. There are a lot of networking events, industry events that happen. EGBC itself conducts a lot of industry events, and you get chance to interact with so many vendors. Like in our case studies, we mentioned a lot of vendors like Yellow Energy, who provide the PV panel solution, Ecomat Pro, who do the bamboo solution, AQMC, if I'm not wrong, who have certain paint or HVAC solutions as well. So we got to interact with all of these vendors through these industry events. So although we do have challenges, they're not hard to find. They're right here, and we just have to speak to the industry and interact to identify these vendors. I think those were the questions. If anybody else wants to add something, sure, from RLB or anybody else has any question, happy to answer them.
Okay, we got a perfect there, so which means I think we should be wrapping it up.
Sure.
There was just one suggestion, I guess, or mention if RLB has a white paper or report on the sustainability uplift slide. I think we should, as EGBC and RLB, consider maybe collaborating on such a paper, since it did gain a lot of interest. So with that being said, thank you for joining us, and thank you, RLB, for this great presentation, and we look forward to our next workshop. Have a lovely weekend. So, salam alaikum.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.